Hi-de-ho there, neighbors. I hope everyone is well. I am in bizarre sort of mood, but I had a notion of something to talk about. I wanted to talk about golems, specifically the fleshy kind. I was recently reading the Cavalier and Clay, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. Great book. I love that book. It's mainly about the early days of comic books and how these two kids coming up during that time period sort of lived their lives. It's very interesting. It's very much of an immigrant story, but a recurring theme that it comes up in is the Golem of Prague, which is clay. But there are a couple of other versions of golems that pop up around in various places. Possibly the most famous example of a golem in literature is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein's monster. Not Frankenstein, who is in fact the doctor who makes the monster, but the monster itself. Now, the monster doesn't actually have a name. He's been given names a couple of times throughout various versions of the story of Adam. And I think there's one version where he was given the name Proteus and a couple other things. Honestly, he is just the monster. He is a terrible thing made of flesh, sewn together, a creation that life has been infused into. And there's something really compelling about that. Now, the LARP I help with when I actually have time to show up to help with. Long story. I'll complain about that some other time because, I don't complain about my work schedule enough. But the thing with that LARP is there is a whole race that we have there called homunculus, which is really just another kind of golem. It's a thing made and given a form and given life through some magical means. Eberron has another example of this with the Warforged, where they're actually metallic golems. They're more like robots in that regard. Robots also occupy that sort of strange space of the thing that we create and then give life. And I like the sort of mental world creation space that's involved there. There's something disturbing about the familiarity of these created things because we make them in our image. And by doing so, we sort of take on the role of a god character, right? We become the creators. We give life to something. But we have to make it like us. We can't create something completely new in this sort of golem archetype. It has to be sort of aping us. It has to be either made from parts of us or made to look like us. And I like that there's that sort of we're trying to be God, making our things in our image. Even put aside the religious side on whether or not you're religious or not. There is a cultural touchstone for that Judeo-Christian mythology involved there of having a God that created man in his own image. And, of course, we, when we're creating our fictional monsters, want to create them in our own image. And I like the notion of a race that is based on that notion of sort of a scrapped together from our imaginations and our intelligence and what have you, but forever bound to our expectations, bound to our vision of what a man is supposed to be, or woman, Let's not get into the gender of it, although let's get into it a little bit. It's really interesting how often they would do the Bride of Frankenstein story, and invariably it was a terrible disaster. when they try and make the woman to go with the male, it never works. And it invariably leads to a great downfall, which mirrors the Judeo-Christian notion of, the fall of man is due to Eve, which, let's face it, patriarchy kind of reinforces that. I get that it's not an awesome myth to go by, but it is telling that we have repeatedly done that. Now, you don't have to do that, and in particular, when they do them as races, they really don't do that. Because the notion of having a race of created beings is a relatively new one in our cultural languages, I guess. So we had already progressed to the point of going, you know what, maybe women are getting the short end of the stick. Maybe we shouldn't create, mirror that in our creations anymore. So there's that. Sorry, I'm rambling, I know, but that's the name of the show. My late night rambles. It's not my late night cogent thoughts. Anyways, setting fire. No. Fire bad. Tree pretty. Frankenstein is, invariably our, vision of ourselves as God making a flawed creation. And thereby is sort of a commentary on God and ourselves. We are a flawed creation, and God failed to make us correctly. So, there's that. But doing it as a race of created beings that is made to mirror our own imperfections, amplified in Dust to Dust, the LARP that I up with, the magnification of our own bodies actually enters in as a form of punishment. There are some people who are repurposed into being these golems. They don't have the same souls, they don't have the same memories, but they have that same face, and is therefore an eternal reminder of the failings of those around them, rather than a punishment on the person involved. Just the notion. Now, of course, Eberron, the sort of robotic style race, occupies an interesting space because they didn't have a long history behind them. They are created during a war, and when the war is done with them, they don't know what to do with them. And they never thought for a second, I imagine they thought for a second, let's just make things that are utilitarian, a battering ram thingy, or a catapult thingy that just happens to maneuver on its own. No, they made people, because they realized that people have to fight wars. And thereby makes them a mirror of the living that made them, and when they are done fighting, nobody knows what to do with them anymore. They can't kill them because, they're people. We've made them to be people. You can't just kill all the soldiers when you're done with your war. I like the commentary on flawed creations and mirroring ourselves and mirroring our own flaws that can be found in making a race of golem-like creatures. You could do this with robots in science fiction, clones. Anyone seen Blade Runner? Blade Runner, the replicants in Blade Runner are essentially the same story. It's Frankenstein's monster. It's a creature that we made that doesn't understand the terrible burden that was put upon them. They don't know why they are the way they are. They are flawed in much the same way that the creators of them are flawed, only amplified. They're more beautiful, more strong, and more deeply flawed than the people that made them, but it's only an amplification of their creator's essential problems. Oh. That was the thing that occurred to me to talk about tonight. There is a wonderful range of things that you can do with golems in their various forms. Anyways, that was me being vaguely creative and profound and odd, but I felt buoyed by my day. I had a decent day. I had a coworker tell me that they had watched some of my videos, and I hope they see this one. And got to talk about what's interesting about the Tennessee Valley as far as places to go visit and see, and it sort of reminded me of the things that I do like about my home. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Anyway, I'm going to call it because I'm a little over 10 minutes now. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and that this was interesting. I can only hope to be interesting. Not exciting, because that usually involves somebody losing an eye. Right. Subscribe, like, share with other people, and I'll talk to you later.